tall, 135 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. If you have any information, please call 407-254-7000. If your loved one is missing and you need help, go to cnn.com/Nancy Grace. Send us your story. We want to help you find your loved ones.
Iowa authorities believe 12-year-old Johnny Gosch was abducted before dawn on September 5th, 1982.
Johnny Gosch wakes up early to make some money as a paperboy. He loads Sunday copies of the Des Moines Register into the red wagon he wheels around the neighborhood.
The wagon Johnny used to deliver the Sunday paper was found near his home. The wagon filled with copies of that morning's newspaper.
Johnny never seen or heard from again.
Police have never been able to confirm a credible sighting of Johnny or find viable clues in his disappearance. Johnny's mother insists Johnny was taken for human trafficking and believes he may still be alive.
All we want is our boy back, and we're willing to do anything to get him back.
Do you know that Johnny Gosch had been a paperboy for 13 months? So he had been out there a long time. If anybody wanted to follow him and see his patterns, they would have been able to. His mother, the family's private investigator, believes he is alive, that he was sold when he was abducted into the sex trade industry in 1982, and his life went that direction, and to this day, he cannot show his identity because he could be harmed. We're taking your calls. Melissa in Texas. Hi, Melissa.
Hello. My question is, why would she answer the door to two men in the middle of the night? I mean, and also, did they ever identify the other man that was with Johnny?
Okay, some good common sense. James Rothstein, did she ever tell you why she opened the door to two men at 2:30 in the morning?
Yes, I believe she had probably known that he was coming because there were two people that went there, Johnny and one other individual. And that was the original plan when Johnny was allowed to go home, from my source. And the other part of this is everybody is questioning Noreen's integrity. And in the 12 years that I've been working with her, there's never been a question in my mind about her integrity. The big question is, how come this case hasn't been solved by law enforcement? Why do we want to blame Noreen? Let's go looking for the criminals, not blaming somebody.
So did you set up a meeting, and did you know ahead of time that these two men, one being Johnny, were going to go to her apartment?
No, I did not set up that meeting. This is information I received a couple of years ago, about 5-6 years ago, from the individual who did set up that meeting. And he was well known to Noreen. He, in fact, had testified in front of Arlen Specter's committee in the United States Senate on this case. And he had credibility when he testified there, so I give this man a lot of credibility in the information he gave me.
So you believe, obviously, that this is true. I want to go to Natisha Lance. Talk to me about Ron Bonacci, if I am saying that name correctly. This is someone who said, hey, look, I was involved. I was involved in the abduction, but law enforcement says they don't think so.
Right. Paul Bonacci, he is actually the reason that Noreen was testifying in that case back in 1999. What he says is when he was behind bars is that he was involved in Johnny's disappearance. He says that he was there to help lure him into the vehicle with that man, that car that was seen by 3 witnesses the day that Johnny was kidnapped. And he says that he was involved that day. Now, police have said that there's been no evidence that leads them to believe that his story is true. And he was also involved, he says, in another child sex ring that was going on. And that is why he was testifying in that case back in 1999.
To Mark Klass, president and founder of Klass Kids Foundation, you know, in so many of these cases that we cover, I mean, we applaud law enforcement. What would we do without law enforcement? But in this case, Noreen Gosch has said from the beginning, law enforcement is not helping me. They're not doing what they need to do. But yet I have read at the case file, law enforcement did a lot. But is there a point where law enforcement doesn't go that extra mile to solve the case?
Well, we have to understand that this was nearly 30 years ago, Gene, and they didn't have any kind of training whatsoever in how to investigate missing child cases. Even now, when they do have training, we see a lot of criticism in an awful lot of the cases. These are very, very difficult cases to crack. You know, this is about a little boy who goes out one morning and before the sun even comes up has completely disappeared off of the face of the earth. We're literally trying to pick a needle out of a haystack in the best of these cases, and unfortunately we're not always able to find that needle. So, you know, there's a lot of criticism that can go around everywhere, but law enforcement is under enormous pressure. And when they don't have the training and the know-how to go about investigating these things, they are really doubled down on the pressure.
To Pat Brown, what should law enforcement do now? They say that when a tip comes in, they investigate it, but it doesn't look like they're actively doing anything at this point so many years later.
That's probably correct because they can't really do anything. This boy was probably dead very quickly, probably buried in some remote location, maybe on a farm. They're not going to find him. But I want to point out what's really sad for this poor mom and other family members like her. They become ripe for people who want to abuse them and use them. They spend fortunes on private investigators when there's really no hope of finding anything. There are psychics that come in and take advantage of them. Sometimes they search out every expert in the book, one after the other, until somebody tells them what they want to hear. And it's just extraordinarily sad. I think, you know, they're in such a bad place and no one should take advantage of them.
And Pat Brown, do you realize that this mother, Noreen Gosch, was extorted for money and it resulted in a prosecution and a conviction? I want to go out to Darlise in Washington State. Hi.
Hi. My question is that could anybody identify the man in the vehicle that pulled up and asked him questions? Hi.
Boy, oh boy. James Rothstein, you weren't with the case at that point, but could anybody see that man? We know it was a man that was in the vehicle that morning.
I have never heard that he was identified, and I don't know all the information, but what Mr. Klass said, I want to add one thing to that. There's another thing that gets involved here. It is very, very expensive to do these types of investigation, and that's why in New York we could do it because we had the money to do these types of cases. This is a very expensive investigation to conduct.
These are the faces of America's missing. Every 30 seconds, another child, a sister, a brother, a father, a mother, they disappear. Their families are left behind, wondering and waiting and hoping. We have not forgotten.
Marshall Austin is an endangered missing adult who disappeared from a residence in the Houston area in 2003. If you have any information, call 713-731-5223. Kimberly Raymer disappeared from Opp, Alabama in 1997. At the time, she wore clear braces and had dark eyebrows.
Kimberly went missing. It's going on 13 years ago. Kimberly was at home, and she was by herself at the time, and someone came into the house and took her. Everything was left there, her contacts, her clothes, her shoes, car keys, everything. There was a struggle in her bedroom. There was pictures that had fallen to the floor, you know, in her bedroom. There was things that was scattered around that I could tell that there had been a scuffle or something in her bedroom. No one else was at home. She was home alone. She was 17 years old. It's just something that we have to cope with every single day, or try to cope with it. It's just very, very hard for all of us.
Jesus Dominguez was allegedly kidnapped from Golden Acres, Texas, by his non-custodial father in 2008. They may be traveling in a green Ford F-150 pickup truck with Texas plates.
Jesus has been missing for about 3 years. I have no idea where he's at. We think he may be in Mexico with his paternal grandparents or his family members. Once his father found out that I had gotten custody, he took off with him, and we haven't seen him since.
I'm Jean Casares. See you tomorrow night, 9 o'clock sharp Eastern. Until then, we will be looking. Good night, everybody.